Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Lots of action items and exciting news today, so stay frosty and make sure to listen to the end for a summary of those actions that you should take. Let's hit it. For the critical last push to get UBI and other policies included in the stimulus bill being negotiated right now, the Coalition of Organizations for the People's Stimulus has announced a second car parade and march on the homes of our representatives. It will take place this Saturday, July 25th. Follow the link below to find an event near you. If there isn't one yet, start one. Income Movement has also developed a petition aimed specifically at McConnell and Schumer adopting the people's stimulus demands in the next bill. They've also set up a separate petition for Trump to adopt UBI. Please take 1 minute to follow the links in the podcast description and add your name to both. Some exciting news for some people. GiveDirectly has 2 job openings. Both have to do with managing the distribution of UBI aid in the U.S. They do desire someone who has experience working in that sort of environment and overseeing similar projects. If that's you and you want your job to be UBI, follow the link below and submit your application. Trump and others continue to use alarmist language around the Portland protests, saying that if the DHS hadn't stepped in, the city would have been lost and the protesters are anarchist terrorists. Yet reports from locals are that the entire conflict is confined to a 4-block area, that it's mostly graffiti and water bottles from the protesters, with the obvious exception of the police union building fire, which happened after the DHS came on the scene, and that the protests were steadily losing steam until the federal troops showed up. Since then, they say, the actions of the feds have reignited the anger of the protesters, with the crowds now growing rather than shrinking in response to all new abuses of power by the DHS. As Oregon officials have been saying, the uninvited federal intervention has made the situation far worse and continues to nightly. Personally, I think that's a feature, not a bug, in Trump's estimation. That's speculation on my part, of course, but it's undeniable that he's doing all he can to build a narrative around lawless terrorists besieging the country and then connecting that image to Democrats to rile up his base, many of whom are eating it up without question. Speaking of systemic oppression, Lanisha Bratcher, a 32-year-old woman who voted in 2016 while on probation for a felony assault charge in North Carolina, has been charged by the district attorney of Hope County with 2 Class 1 felonies for swearing that she was eligible to vote on her voter registration. She faces a maximum of a little over 3 years in prison for trying to exercise her constitutional right to vote. Bratcher says that she had no idea she was ineligible to vote. Prosecutors across the state chose not to pursue many cases of illegal voting in 2016, as nearly a year before she was charged, investigators from the State Board of Elections wrote a letter to the Hope County DA saying that many felons are not told about restrictions on voting. It's also hard to argue that the law itself is constitutional, as all citizens are supposed to have the right to representation in the government. The law also has a long history of disenfranchising mainly black voters, which is what it was designed for back in the Jim Crow days. To provide some context for how biased our system of justice can be, CEO Dan Price pointed out that PG&E pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter after causing a fire that killed 85 people. The executives got 0 jail time, and the company was fined 0.02% of their annual revenue. According to our justice system, accidentally violating a law that unconstitutionally prevents you from voting is infinitely more offensive than accidentally killing 85 people. Who knows why there's so many protests going on, though? In happier news, the City Council of Norwich has unanimously passed a motion to urge the UK government to pilot a UBI, joining the voices of 3 other UK cities so far. This has been the work of the network of UBI labs lobbying their local governments, a move that we should replicate here in the US and around the world. As they say, think global, act local. It really is proven to be the most effective method. Those voices have also been joined by major artists and the Musicians Union in the UK, also demanding a nationwide UBI, mirroring the letter to the Canadian government by 75,000 artists there. This letter includes endorsements by Green Party Deputy Leader Amelia Womack, the Subways, the Charlatans, the Musicians Union, Rachel Paris, Art Brute, Bang Bang Romeo, Reverend and the Makers, and many, many more. Finally, Income Movement is asking for anyone in Utah, Missouri, Florida, or Arkansas to help pressure your senators to include monthly direct payments as part of the next stimulus package by writing a letter to your editor for one of your local newspapers. Letters are easy to ignore, even calls, but not local newspapers. People still read those. They affect public opinion. We need that pressure. Don't feel overwhelmed. Income Movement has you covered with template letters and instructions. Just follow the link below and you'll find it's fairly easy. Be our hero, gang. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Sign up for the People's March, sign the petitions, apply for Give Directly openings, write a UBI letter to your local newspaper, help recruit other organizations to the cause and get everyone to sign the UBI petitions, flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters using the ResistBot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need financial help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.